It will take time to build momentum with your direct to seller marketing. You want to make sure that you give it 4 to 6 months to see if it works. You don't want to start and just say, I'm going to do it for 1 month or 2 months. We really start to see momentum build in month 4 to month 6.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 328. We all know that it's a competitive real estate market right now, and that there seems to be a lot more buyers than there are deals. One of the best ways to find opportunities is to market directly to the seller and bypass the brokers and other buyers altogether. This is also one of the least understood strategies. And today we're going to dig in a little deeper with my guest, Justin Silverio. Justin is the owner of JS2 Homes, Open Letter Marketing, and Invelo. Through his companies, Justin provides thousands of real estate investors a more effective direct-to-seller marketing approach, and he educates them on best practices around pull lists, marketing campaigns, lead tracking, and full analytics. And we'll discuss those things as we go along today. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming today. Now, I was telling you, I'm a little out of my depth with this conversation. I was telling you this before the show because I don't really do direct to seller marketing. And I know there's all kinds of terms and terminology, but you promised me we do our best to make sure everybody understands what's going on, most of all me. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of real estate investing you do.
I got into real estate investing in 2011. I mainly focused on single family homes, renovating them. And through the years, I kind of moved up the asset class from entry-level homes to mid-level to high-end new construction, and then to condo conversions in the city of Boston. I've also picked up a number of rental properties. So I have an understanding of rental as well. And then in 2016, I had always done direct to seller marketing to find most of my deals. So I wanted to make sure that I created my own deal flow. And I did it in a way and used a strategy that was very unique to the market. And I saw that there was no other provider offering this. So that's when I launched Open Letter Marketing in 2016 to offer this type of strategy and these products to the market where I saw a huge void. And since then, we've been helping thousands of investors around the country, helping them secure deals, find deals so they can make more money and scale their business.
Let's talk about direct to seller marketing. What is that exactly, and what type of real estate investor would employ that technique?
So direct to seller marketing is essentially going directly to sellers. Instead of using a middle person, you are trying to contact the owner themselves. And really, this can be used for any type of asset class. Most likely, it's going to be used for single family, multifamily owners. But I've seen other people in the commercial space actually do direct to seller marketing. While their strategy might change on how they actually reach out to the owner, when you actually shift from like a mom and pop owning the property to a corporation owning it, strategies might vary. But all in all, direct to seller is really just going and talking directly with the seller instead of talking to a middle person like a real estate agent or some other profession.
In the beginning, before you created Open Letter Marketing and Envelo, what kind of direct marketing were you doing and what kind of results were you finding?
So I was doing direct mail. I always started with direct mail because I knew it was an easy way to automate my marketing and creating deal flow. So I started with direct mail, and that was mostly what I did to get sellers to actually reach out to me saying that they had an interest in selling. The strategies that I used was basically I created a list of people that I thought might be interested in selling. And as an example, where I think a lot of your audience members can understand is absentee owners. So somebody that owns a house or a property that doesn't live there. So if it's a single family or a multifamily property, you can get a list of absentee owners. And from there, you can start marketing to them because you have their property address. And when you pull a list, you can generally identify who the owner is and what their mailing address is. And with those two data points, the owner's name and the mailing address, you can start sending them direct mail to see if they're interested in selling.
Where do these lists come from? Are you pulling them yourself, or do you have a company you hire to do it for you?
Currently, we use either ListSource, or in my state, I have access to the MLS, and we have a public records database behind the MLS that you can actually pull a number of different lists from them. So, it's all for free. So I try to use that as best to my ability, because the data is going to be fresher than a third-party list provider like ListSource. So I generally use that. But as we launch Envelo, we will actually have the ability to pull lists right inside the platform.
These companies that pull the lists, I think you said ListSource is one of them, Invelo. Are you just getting them from the MLS, or where does that data originate from?
Most of the data providers are getting it right from the assessors department. Every time there's a change, like somebody sells a house, that all gets updated in the assessors department, because when you purchase a property, usually the town sends you information on who purchased it and whatnot, and they get that information from closing documents. So anytime there's a change, the assessor is updated on that information. And they really just want it because they need to understand where they're getting who's paying their taxes. But then they also provide that information to a large data aggregate company that collects all the information from all the assessors around the country. And from there, they're basically providing that information to other companies like ListSource, and they're putting together an offering where people can come in and pull different lists. So that's typically how it usually goes.
Once you get these lists, what do you do with them? Do you call people, mail people? What happens?
You can do all of that. Different people, different investors will use different strategies. And the main thing for me is, direct mail works really well for me and for many, many other investors. But the important thing is that the investor themselves understands what's going to work with their lifestyle and how they want to do things. Meaning some investors feel more comfortable cold calling or text messaging or door knocking. So if that investor really wants to do those types of things, then I would say do that, because the most important thing with marketing, regardless of what it is consistency. And that's where I see a lot of investors fall off. They'll start to send direct mail. Maybe they'll send one or two letters and then they'll just stop. Or they make some calls and then they don't see any results and then they stop. And that is the number one reason why people fail on direct to seller marketing. So that's why I always start at what is going to work with your lifestyle and where you feel most comfortable and what will you be consistent with. And if that is direct mail, which is the main reason that I have always curated my own deals, direct mail is a way to get somebody's attention because you're sending them a mail piece in their mailbox. So the ability to get directly in front of the seller is extremely high. Everybody checks their mail, they're going through it. So your ability to just get yourself noticed in their mailbox and them open that letter, that's the most important thing. So I always start with, there's different types of direct mail that you can use, handwritten letters, where it's just like a personalized note to them, or a professional letter that looks more professionally typed, or postcards. So there's all these different types of products that you can use with direct mail. And the important thing to understand is that not everybody will respond the same exact way. So some people might respond off a postcard. Some people might respond off a professional letter or a handwritten letter. So changing up your messaging and the product that you're sending to them is really important, that you're mixing around all these different products.
Can you give us an example from when you first started doing direct mail? What kind of response you got and one of the deals that you might have done?
So when I started, my wife and we created our own little font and we printed it out and we hand wrote every envelope. So our goal was 500 a week. So we would do this all in-house. And I would have a list of people that I would want to mail out to. And we would do 500 a week, mail them out. And then we'd get calls coming back in. And man, when I started, I was so scared to answer that phone because I didn't know what to ask them and how to respond and whatnot. But at the time in 2011, the response rates were really good. For anywhere from 2 to 4%, we were getting responses. So you're not getting those responses now because competitive landscape has changed dramatically, as you mentioned earlier. We're not seeing those response rates right now, which I can explain what they are now in a minute. But when I got started, people would call in. I would start to screen the calls, just asking them questions about their property, why they're looking to sell, to really understand their motivation. And then from there, I would dive in to understand the property, what I could buy it for, set up a time to meet, and move forward with hopefully signing a contract.
Give us a specific example of a deal that you did.
One of the properties that I purchased was a single family home. I was sending letters to that person probably for about a year. The homeowner called me back and she said, yeah, I'd love for you to come out to the house. And she was a little bit apprehensive of me coming out because a lot of people, when you go direct to seller, you're going to deal with all different types of situations. And this particular person, she was a hoarder. So she was embarrassed about her house and didn't really want me to walk through. So I had to make sure that she understood that she could be comfortable with me walking through and just explaining, I don't take anything personal. Like, I'm just looking at the property itself. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Like, I don't really look at that stuff. I just really look at the core bones of the property. So anyways, she said, let's meet next week. And we met. Meanwhile, I found out that she's been in the hospital in and out because she had so much stuff all around the house and she didn't have any water to the house, no electricity. So it was really cold in there. It was the middle of winter and there was mold everywhere. So she was in and out of the hospital because of the mold was really killing her in her lungs. She needed to move out. So I walked through the house. I gave her an offer. She accepted. And yeah, we moved forward. And she was so grateful that I was able to find her through this direct mail because she had no idea how to sell the property, who to go to. She knew it couldn't list it on the market. Her and her kids were like super grateful that I was able to purchase the property because she was able to move into a new house with no mold.
Roughly, what did you buy it for? How much did you have to put into it? And what were you able to sell it for if you did in fact sell it?
$90,000. I put in about $80,000 worth of work. And I believe I sold that one for about $275,000.
Made a nice profit on that.
Yeah, it was good profit.
We're going to talk about Envelo here in a moment, but you started a company early on called, is it Open Letter Marketing?
Yes.
And that was to kind of share best practices with other investors. Talk about some of those best practices that you were sharing.
So some of those best practices, what I mentioned before, Open Letter Marketing, I wanted to make sure that we weren't just a direct mail company, right? We're not order takers. We understand real estate investors. We understand the niche really well. And I want to make sure that anyone who calls in can get an understanding, if they're new to direct to seller marketing, can understand the strategies that they need to implement. So some of those best practices, again, is understand that you're not going to send one mailer and expect deals coming right out the door once you send the first mailer. You need to be consistent. You need to send at least 4 to 6 touches to the prospect before you can expect some really good, consistent results. We provide examples of where to pull lists, how to pull the list, the different types of lists to pull. And then depending on your investment focus, if you're a rehabber, wholesaler, or multifamily buyer, we can provide some guidance on what type of products to purchase that we feel will get the best results.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com.
If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So Justin, then what are some of the tricks then that you employ to get a better response rate on your direct mail?
Over the past year or two, we've really had to do something in addition to direct mail to make sure that our response rates are consistently hitting good marks. So in addition to direct mail, a lot of our customers, what we find is that they're also implementing other strategies on top of direct mail. So direct mail is their fundamental direct-to-seller marketing piece. So they'll send out the direct mail, and 2 days after the person is to receive that mail, they'll follow up with a ringless voicemail, or they'll call the homeowner to just check in to see if they received the mail piece. And doing it that way, combining these different types of marketing strategies, it makes it there. You're hitting the seller in different ways. And we look at that as kind of an omni-channel presence. So you're attacking or reaching out to the seller in different ways. So that strategy has been working really well. Right now, direct mail response rates are around 1% or under because of the competitiveness in the market. But when you employ these other additional strategies, we've seen response rates jump anywhere from 3 to 10%, depending on market, because of the cohesiveness between the different strategies.
So the strategy being not just mailing, but following up with a phone call and just continuing along different channels. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Now, again, some people are concerned because the TCPA does have regulations around like cold calling or sending ringless voicemails. So some investors feel comfortable doing that. Other investors don't feel comfortable doing that because there's potential litigation if you're calling somebody that's maybe on the do not call list. So you always want to be cognizant and aware of that before you start doing that.
What is the CCPA?
It's the Telephone Consumer Protection Agency, and they regulate, if you can solicit to other people. So there's people that have their phone numbers on the do not call list. So technically you cannot solicit to them. However, with real estate investors, there's, I know a number of investors that have been sued successfully. And, they had to pay anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000. But there's kind of a little nuance in the real estate investor market where we're not trying to sell them anything. We're trying to purchase their house. So some people have been able to get around that. Other people's not so much. But it's really, that's why it's up to the investor to do their own due diligence and make sure they're comfortable calling, texting, doing ringless voicemail. And that's, again, why I like direct mail so much, is because you're not really dealing with any of that stuff. You can send anybody a piece of direct mail.
Now, I've noticed that with a lot of the smaller, more residential properties that I own, I do get a lot of direct mail. People saying, hey, I like your property, I want to buy it. But then for the commercial properties I own, I tend to get more phone calls that go direct to voicemail. I'm wondering, what are some of the differences in strategy and tactics to go after commercial properties?
When you're going after commercial properties, there's going to be less properties that you can really go after, right? There's a lot of single family homes, but as you kind of move up the asset class and looking for larger properties, there's not going to be as many. So in my view, when you move up the asset class and profitability increases generally, then I'm willing to spend a little bit more money in getting in touch with the prospect. So whether or not I send direct mail, if it's a really hot property that I want, because most of the time, if you're doing larger multifamilies, there's not going to be hundreds in a specific town, right? There might be 100 or less properties that have 20 plus doors. So for that reason, and if it's an area that you really want, I see a lot of investors spending more money to go after those people. So maybe they will call them because they can touch each one of those people and they don't have hundreds of calls they have to make. So that's where you're seeing a lot more calls because there's probably not a lot of properties like yours around. So they're willing to spend the time and energy and directly calling. Now I see other people putting dollar bills in their mailers to make the person reach out, something a little bit different. And I also see other investors sending, care packages or, flowers, really anything that will stand out to get their attention. Now, granted, that's going to cost a lot more money, but again, the cost of that or the profitability on that deal outweighs the cost. So those are some of the different strategies that I've seen people do to get the attention of sellers with larger properties.
Let's switch gears and talk about Envelo. What can you tell us about this company that you created?
So we've been working on Envelo for the last few years, and the goal for us was to assist and simplify investors on scaling their business. So the platform Envelo is made up of three components. The first component is software. So the software we have will range the whole sales pipeline for an investor. So you can pull lists, you can manage your prospects, you can segment prospects to identify which ones are higher quality than others so that you know who to market more aggressively to. You can market out of the platform with direct mail, you can send emails, you can do ringless voicemail, anything like that. So you have a big marketing machine that's all automated. Then when people start calling you or they're coming through your website, they can funnel into your lead pipeline. So your leads are anybody that you're currently talking to and you're trying to move toward closing a deal. We also have automations, built-in marketing, so you can follow with leads. So you don't have to do it manually all the time, because follow-up, in my eyes, is one of the most important things. Over the years, I've seen myself and other investors, they close more than 70 to 80% of their deals just through follow-up. So follow-up is a critical aspect, and I see a lot of investors not doing it well and properly. So this system automates all that for you. And then we have a deal pipeline as well. So once you purchase a property, you still have to do something. So you have to renovate it, you have to find tenants, you have to rent it out. So you can manage that deal pipeline as well. Not only that, there's a lot of analytics and KPIs, so you can really understand where you need to work on in your business. So you can look at conversion rates, you can look at what lists are pulling better and converting to deals more so that you can more actively market to those people. So there's tons of different stuff, different items in the software that it can do that just really no other software can do it. And then the two other aspects real quickly is education. We put a huge effort on education. We do a lot of internal education we've created, but we also team up with industry experts that create masterclasses. And those masterclasses are an hour deep sessions talking about a specific topic that provide actionable items after that masterclass. And we have one or two of those coming out every month to provide more in-depth education for our users. And the last one is community. Just having an atmosphere where you can collaborate and communicate with other real estate investors so that you can learn and share within the community.
So what type of investor is Envelo geared toward?
Any investor that is either wholesaling, rehabbing, doing some multifamily properties, really anybody going direct to seller, because this platform really helps to automate your marketing, to find people to reach out to, and then manage your pipeline so you don't let any leads go untouched. So that's really the core focus.
Talk about the automation part. Like, how are you automating the follow-up? Like, how exactly does that work?
You have the ability to create marketing campaigns within the platform. And again, you can have sequences. So you can send a direct mail piece out day 1, ringless voicemail day 10, an email day 20, another direct mail day 30. So when somebody's in your lead pipeline and you've tried to call them 3 or 4 times and you still can't reach out to them, you can put them on a marketing campaign so that you can automate the follow-up marketing to try to get them to reach back out to you. So you don't have to spend your time continuing to call them and not get anywhere. You can attack them at different angles. So they reach back out, come back into your pipeline, and then you can kind of continue on with your conversation.
Describe some of the other automation techniques that you built into the software.
So some of the smaller automation pieces, it might seem small, but it's actually a very, very critical piece for most investors. So let's say that you're marketing to potential home sellers, but you have, a large list, and over time, sellers sell their house to somebody else. Now, right now, there's really no system that will identify, hey, this property sold, and you don't want to market to them anymore because it's now a new owner. So our system, because we have all properties throughout the US, 99.8% of all the properties in the US, we have access to that database. It's our own database and it's updated every single day. So when somebody does sell their house, that property is automatically flagged and it will be removed from the user's prospect database into like a removed bucket. And it will automatically be removed from any future marketing. So you're not continuously spending money on that marketing because you just didn't know it sold. Even if you're adding new lists into the system, that record will never get back into your prospects database unless you manually push it in. So you never have to worry about, I have a bunch of properties that are in my removed, but I'm importing a new list and I want to make sure they don't go back into my marketing because I removed them for a reason. We have that automation and the ability to not push those records back in your prospects database so you don't continue to market to them again.
What about running the numbers and doing your due diligence? Is that part of the software as well?
So right now, we don't have the ability to do any kind of, comparative market analysis. We do have functionality so you can put in your numbers, like where do I think the after repair value is going to be, or rental rate, and you can back into what you should offer. But we don't have anything inside the system that can automate that process for you.
So, Justin, as we wrap it up here, any advice for our listeners who are looking to do direct to seller marketing, things that they should be thinking about or advice that you would give them?
The first thing, again, just leading with that mindset that it will take time to build momentum with your direct to seller marketing. You want to make sure that you give it 4 to 6 months to see if it works. You don't want to start and just say, I'm going to do it for 1 month or 2 months. We really start to see momentum build in month 4 to month 6. So that is the first thing. And that's probably the best advice I can give because I want to make sure people are set up for success and have the mindset and understanding that it does take time to build momentum. But once you get over that hump and start getting the deal flow, it's going to be much easier to continue marketing from there. So I would say start with that mindset first, then start pulling your first list. And they can give us a call at Open Letter Marketing and we can help them out with the strategy, or they can do their own due diligence on which marketing tactic they want to go after.
How would people find out more about you and your companies?
They can email me directly if they want, justin@enveloapp.com, or they can go to openlettermarketing.com for Open Letter Marketing, or Invelo, INVELOAPP.com. So enveloapp.com.
Great. Well, Justin, thank you for coming on the show and talking about direct to seller marketing, learning about Open Letter Marketing, the techniques that you're using, the strategies, and Envelo. Really appreciate you having this conversation with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.